All right, everyone, we should be live. We'll make sure that's actually the case cross-platform as always. A little bit later today, which is good. More people will pile in. We'll make sure that Rumble is actually live. By the way, 95,000 people now subscribe on rumble.com. So that's difficult to get to even on much larger platforms at this point, especially with the algorithmic demotion being as draconian as it is. We'll make sure that we're live. Let me refresh this. Let me make sure that what we're working with. Yes, we're live on Rumble. Make sure the chat's working. Yes, indeed. Lots of chats, actually, at the moment. Yeah, Cam2425IA. This is the pre-show, dude. Yes, indeed. You have to upload a video on Rumble under 1 minute as a placeholder video. And, you can have music or whatever you want. I don't do that. I just have a video that says, please stand by, and has the Ouroboros on it. I'm low tech at the moment. By the way, before we get into the news, we do have one update about the midterm stream. Another individual, commonly alluded to as someone that people want to see as a guest on the midterm stream, has RSVP'd for that event. So we've got 2 people confirmed. I've got some other people that I want to option. Sleazy and myself still have to make sure that we can actually have guests aboard for the midterm stream. It's going to be one hell of a goddamn doozy. If you thought the last midterm stream was nuts, this one's going to be even better, because not only do I have a co-host, Sleazy P. Martini of Guar, of course, himself, we also have the ability now to show maps and shit on the side because I'm using StreamYard. It's not so low tech as just using the Google Live feature, the old feature on YouTube that was so great actually for a while, and they nerfed it and made it useless. So I have to use a third-party software now. The 21.6 talk show. Getting stoned and watching your show is how I start my day right. Clanking from Missouri. I hope that whatever you're getting stoned on is legal there in Missouri. They can be slightly draconian. Salt A. Loving the media damage control on Biden cancer with verbiage and past tense. Haha. A lot of people are waking up to the BS and hypocrisy. Yeah, if Biden actually had cancer, then the fact that he also has the coof would be pretty bad, especially when he's about 80 years old. So let's see here. Just let me make sure that all of my news tabs are proper here. Open over to the side. There's 1,000 people watching already. We've only been live for like 3 minutes. So that's what I'm talking about. Real Clank hours. Also did a video with Liz earlier. I don't know if she's uploaded it yet. Let me check that, actually. It'd be funny to put it in, actually in. And imagine she's uploaded it already. We were talking about food, actually. Yeah, it's not up yet. We'll do that later. The baby is chussing upstairs. Some fagoot. Live calls during midterm stream. No live calls, and the reason why there won't be is because I don't want to get a strike on my channel, because somebody would just call up and they would be Antifa or something, and then they would just start screaming racial slurs, and then we'd have to take the stream down. Two-Ton Tommy, regionally, Lee Zeldin, New York State gubernatorial candidate, was assaulted with blades, knuckles on stage while campaigning about our shitty bail reform laws. He was charged with a misdemeanor and released. Interesting. Drew Erpenbach, thoughts on depressing serotonin study yesterday. I'm not sure we're allowed to talk about that on YouTube, but people should definitely Google it. Yes, there was a major study from the UK, I believe, actually, on the use of antidepressants. And they came to some conclusions that are not in line with mainstream science so-called. Very interesting story. It'd probably have to be a new tech exclusive. Kyle Miller, do you think the oil reserves will be drained before the midterms? I'm worried that Biden actually is crazy enough to drain the oil reserves. Yeah. He might actually do that. He's been warned about this, but he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care if the military has no extra fuel to go on and do what it needs to do in case of a national emergency. I mean, a real one, not just high gas prices. Lemon lime, sticks, any remedies for recovering from sickness? Had jitters pretty badly 3 days ago, a big migraine 2 days ago, and now a throat and stomach flu now. Some people swear by turmeric. In my own opinion, what I've always used, well, other than copious amounts of caffeine and alcohol, of course, wink, wink, ibuprofen, I found to be very helpful for most ailments because it gets you up and it gets you going and reduces pain. And then you tend to feel better because you're doing something. Plenty of fluids and also citrus, lime, lemon, etc. I've always found that to be helpful. Battle Elf, are you an ammo-sexual, Sticks? Not yet, but I'm going to be. When I get back to the United States, I intend to buy at least 2 more firearms and, I don't know, 10,000 rounds of ammo. That sounds reasonable to me. People think that's a lot until you see how quickly you run through it when you're plinking. CPHswing.dk sent 20 DKK. I have no clue. I apologize what particular kind of money that is. 1448, we're watching live just now. That's funny. Magi Guter. Hey, Sticks. I see you speaking a lot about having a bear gun. I recommend a 12-gauge pump shotgun loaded with 3-inch Magnum slugs. 12-gauge pump guns can be had for about $300, and those Magnum slugs slay. If I get a shotgun, I want to have Dragon's Breath rounds in it. I know it's kind of a meme thing, but it's kind of cool anyway. For a bear, I want an M14 style rifle in 308. It's unlikely I'll ever need it, but if I do need it, I'd rather have it than not. Nuke the ice caps. Reports say Biden had lost his sense of smell. Children of the world rejoice. That is probably the greatest current meme, Biden losing his sense of smell. You can probably look that up on fucking Twitter and find a million memes of it. Journey Trials Enjoy. What's your opinion about reports that Vax has negative implications on people's immune systems? I can't weigh in on that legally on YouTube because they might have a problem with the stream. Yeah, but you can look it up for yourself. There are reports coming out with regards to vaccines of various kinds. We'll be talking about the polio case, actually. And by the way, to be clear, I am pro-vax. I'm just not pro every aspect of pro-vax dumb, if that makes any sense. Roscoe P. Coltrane. Good morning, Sticks. No AC in the Netherlands. No, they never invented air conditioners, it seems. Rather sad. Liam Sexton. Greetings, Sticks. Good to hear your voice again. Just spent a couple weeks at sea with no Wi-Fi. Were you on a cruise or in the Navy, perhaps? Anyway, we'll get to the first news story. This is a fairly big one. New York State detects polio case, first in the U.S. since 2013. There are so many things that I have to say about this. New York State reported Thursday that it detected a case of vaccine-derived polio in a person in Rockland County, north of New York City, the first such recorded case in the U.S. since 2013, so almost a decade. In a statement, the State Department of Health said the person, who was not identified, was infected with a type 2 vaccine-derived polio virus, which could have come from oral polio vaccine used in a number of countries, but not the United States. The U.S. stopped using oral polio vaccine in 2000s. The statement did not give details of the individual's age or whether he or she had recently traveled outside the country. Now, as I reported this morning, if we take this at face value, and of course it's legacy media, so it could all be a pile of fucking bollocks, but we'll just assume that this is more or less true. If a person has received the oral polio vaccine in the last 20 years, chances are they're from one of a handful of countries in the world. There are a few dozen that's still used in. There are 3 main ones: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria. If a person who is not identified as far as their origin or anything, I realize because under HIPAA, you can't disclose who they are specifically, but you could say where they're from or where they traveled, where they got polio from. If they receive the oral vaccine, the chances are that this is an asylum seeker or someone who is in the country illegally. That is the largest chance, which is why a lot of the stories, this one that I archived, this is an earlier story. If you look at the earliest takes on the polio case, you'll find that the oral vaccine component is reported on in most of them. If you look at the ones from the last 6 or 7 hours. What do you see missing there? They're not talking about the oral polio vaccine being administered. Why? Because people wisely put 2 and 2 together. They understood a little bit about polio epidemiology, and they said, hey, if they got the oral vaccine, this person is probably not anywhere from the Western world. They're not even from the developing world. They're probably from the third world. Put 2 and 2 together. How does a person like that get to Rockland, which is an upper middle class suburb north of New York City? It's someone who is probably seeking asylum and or came to the country under travel conditions in which they probably should have been screened. They should have been quarantined, but it didn't happen. Wouldn't that be bad for Joe Biden? Hey, yeah, there was a polio outbreak here. 5 or 6 people got sick, which hopefully doesn't happen, but it's possible. Some people got polio, and yeah, it's the result of the open border along the Mexican border. Wouldn't that be wonderful for the Joe Biden administration's chances at propping up their party in the midterms? The Kimberly Thompson, a polio expert who is president of the nonprofit organization Kid Risk, said it's not a surprise to see a vaccine-derived case pop up in this country, noting public health authorities in the UK recently discovered vaccine-derived polio viruses in sewage in London, indicating some transmission there. Yeah, that's wonderful. Polio is being transmitted. Can we ask why this is happening, considering that the entire population more or less should be effectively immune to polio? Could it be the fact that there are lax standards for immigration? That's part of it. Could it be that the government's insistence on cajoling people into getting meaningless vaccines, honk honk, I won't name which ones? Could it be that that has turned large swaths of the population off to getting vaccinated? One of the big problems is you have upper middle class hipster families now not vaccinating their kids for anything because of the honk honking that happened over the last couple of years. Entirely self-inflicted. The problem is that people will look at the polio vaccine that in the West is completely safe, completely effective, and really should be given to everyone. And if you're not vaccinated for polio, you're goddamn crazy. They look at that and they lump it in with the vaccines that they were cajoled into taking for fear of losing their job or something like that. And they throw the baby out with the bathwater. I reported on this morning. My real worry is that people will not vaccinate for actual meaningful illnesses because they've been told so many times by an evil government to vaccinate for other things that are seasonal and endemic, and you're going to end up with all hell breaking loose. You're going to end up with a polio outbreak. I thankfully don't believe this will happen here. I think that resistance to polio is still high enough that that's not a problem. What about 5 years from now? What about 10 years from now? Somebody comes in on a boat or whatever from Afghanistan. They've got polio, and they interact with a bunch of other people. Maybe they end up in the food industry or something for a while. All of a sudden, you have 1,000 cases. You have a bunch of people, little kids, crippled or something. Is that really what we want as a society? There are easy ways to deal with this, but they're not willing to actually tell that to people. They'd rather just punish them for not getting certain other jabs. Dr. Copernicus Sticks, what are your thoughts on the fact that my representative Steve Scalise got shot by an SKS-wielding Bernie bro, and the news barely covered it? Disgusting. Yeah, Steve Scalise got shot in the hip and nearly died. He ended up back in the hospital after he was apparently recovering years ago. Yeah, there was a Bernie bro that shot up the Republican, baseball team, I think it was? Like a bunch of House members, they played baseball for some reason or another, and shot a bunch of people up. You didn't hear much about that recently. I guess the Democrats consider that a good guy with a gun for trying. Matt, has Biden said the line yet? I'm grateful for the protection the vaccines have given me, or it would have been worse. I'm sure that he will. He'll grandstand. Or maybe he croaks. Then we have President Kamala Harris, so we're all hoping that he makes a speedy recovery. Very speedy, Joe. The opposite of what you normally are. Liam Sexton, I'm in the Navy, so being out there wasn't fun. The government may sign my paychecks, but it doesn't mean I like or respect them. Yeah, but you get MREs and shit like that, and you get them for free. I'm slightly jealous. I'm going to need some naval MREs, Liam. You better store a couple away in your rucksack there. Simon Hunt, clanks for the clank god, diapers for the diaper throne. Yes, that's a big throne at this point. Mojo Hansen, global reset and chaos is inevitable. I don't think it's inevitable, but it's getting more likely. Battle Elf, Marco, polio. Yeah. Polio is not actually that funny of a subject when you really think about it, though. A lot of kids got crippled back in the day. Didn't Greg Abbott get polio, I think, years ago? Isn't that why he's in a wheelchair? Making him similar to FDR? In some cases, it seems to have screwed with people's minds. FDR went crazy, started boffing his cousin, and then threw 250,000 U.S. citizens and residents in concentration camps based on their ethnicity after getting polio. It reminds me of Justinian. According to Chronicles, Justinian, after the plague of Justinian, that may have been Black Death, but we're not 100% sure. He sort of went nuts too. His wife died, and he got sick. He recovered, but he was never quite the same. And he used to wander around with mass insomnia around his palace and be a tyrant, effectively. Salt A. Monkeypox is a male flag virus. Little MSM reporting. I can't probably read that out the way you mean it to be read out. We will be talking about the FDR monkeypox clusters, though. Don't worry. Digiphrenic over on Rumble. The new documentary, This is Gwar, just came out yesterday and is streaming on Shudder. Entertaining, funny, and heartfelt. It was cool to see a young sleazy P. Martini. Recommended viewing. Yes, apparently there's a new Gwar documentary. Excellent. And Metal Raider 2181 on Rumble. I saw that patriarchal gun culture thing you talked about, and I agree with Michael Malice. White women must be stopped. No, I don't think that. I just think that mothers against everything should be stopped. It doesn't really matter what color they are. Viking Vet. Abbott was in an accident where he sued and made all his initial money. Oh, I thought he had gotten polio for some reason. I must be thinking of a different politician. Liam Sexton. Unfortunately, the MREs go to the crayon eaters, our term for Marines. We get hot food at sea at least. It ain't the best, but it's passable. Yes, but you still have access to them, and you can probably trade across something that's not particularly meaningful for a couple of MREs. Make Uncle Sticks happy, my naval friend. Or we can eat some cod or something like that. I'm game. Next news story, Biden testing positive for COVID. Yes, indeed, Joe Biden has the coof. Now, considering that he's pushing 80 years old and he has had several aneurysms and has dementia, that's not necessarily the greatest news on earth. He is repeatedly jabbed and he's taking, what was it fucking called? Something other than the one we're not allowed to mention on YouTube. Paxlovid, an antiviral drug designed to reduce the severity of the disease. He's isolating at the White House and continuing to carry out all of his duties fully. There is a chance that he dies. Just to be clear, he's in the age group where there's about a 15% mortality chance regardless of vaccination. So, unfortunately, we're staring down the gauntlet right now. Because there is a possibility the symptoms get worse, Biden croaks. What do we end up with? President Kamala Harris. Yeah, that would be so much better. It'd be so great for our country. We're already hurting. We're already having a million different fucking economic problems, social problems, diplomatic problems, problems foreign and domestic of every possible manner. And people are already making memes about Hillary Clinton laughing as you pan out looking at the White House, thinking about her inevitable 24 run if Biden croaks. Thankfully, that's not likely, but it is possible. Even when Trump got COVID, you got to remember he did have some symptoms, although he was on a slurry of experimental medications, again, that we're not allowed to mention here for no reason at all. And he came through it fine and basically did a Charlie Sheen and started talking effectively about how he had tiger blood at the time. You'll remember that, and it was quite meme-worthy and funny. It just made him more powerful. He didn't even give a shit. He sneezed for a couple of days. Biden appears to be reasonably healthy. He did give an update. That's a good thing. And even if you hate Joe Biden, the alternative is so much worse. I've called Kamala his insurance policy for a reason. Nobody's going to JFK Joe Biden. Nobody in their right mind would do a goddamn thing for him. They're praying for his health. Why? Because think about what happens if he manages to croak or get 25th or incapacitated. We're up shit creek without a paddle. We're up shit creek without a boat. Boiling shit all around you. You don't have paddles, a boat. You're drowning in shit. That would be a Kamala Harris presidency. It would be far worse. She won't even visit the border, and she's the goddamn border czar. If you think that Joe Biden is largely an absentee who occasionally comes out in order to fuss about some social issue in order to gain clout among Democratic voters, how much worse would Kamala Harris be? So I'm hoping that he overcomes the coof and does fine. He may not even really have it. I mean, he tested positive, but who gives a shit? Nobody cares at this point. And it's funny. You've got a new variant of COVID, BA5. And they've been trying to astroturf this as meaningful. And it's basically like Omicron. It's the same story. They've been playing it up a lot, but people just aren't responding to it. I wonder why they've pivoted to talking about cluster outbreaks of monkeypox right now. We will be talking about that. Don't worry. How many, Jesus Christ, we've already got almost 3,500 people watching live. I think that's more than the other day already. We're only 20 minutes in. So yes, Biden does have COVID, supposedly. He tested positive for COVID anyway. We're all hoping that he gets well very, very soon. Please get back on the trail and cock-block Kamala Harris some more. Have your wife continue to talk down to her and refer to her as the help, as we know that Jill Biden does in private. She deserves it, though, so it's okay. Borai Chowins. Sup, Sticks? What are your thoughts on the band The Who? Do you mean The Who, WHO? Yeah, they're pretty good. I didn't know there was a band by The Who as in HU. Not sure what you're talking about. It might be a joke at my expense. It's always possible. Classic Baseman. How are the farmer protests going in the Netherlands? Down with globalism. They're still making their point. They're still protesting. We'll see what happens. It doesn't appear to have dissuaded Mark Rutte's globalistic front yet, but I support them. Even if it does mean no 9 energy drinks at the store. They appear to be played out and have been now for more than a week. So that's one thing, one negative impact on my life from the farm protests. I'm willing to live with it. I can always get my sugar-free Red Bull. The other Brad Bird, butt monkeypox. Yeah, we'll be talking about that. We have to choose our words carefully when we talk about the cluster outbreaks of monkeypox, though. Chase, Sticks, did you hear people in Sri Lanka need to use digital IDs and passports to buy gas, or is that scuttlebutt? I'm not actually sure. I don't think there's any gas to buy in most of the Sri Lanka. That's the whole problem. No access to fuel or anything else. Giniarella, hey Sticks, is it possible testing positive for the coof is code for something else? Thanks for the content. Possible? Yeah, of course. Just a sec here. Okay. Yeah, it's possible that that's the case. Borai Chowins, they're a Mongolian metal band. Oh, I know nothing about them. I've listened more to Darkwave more than anything else. Our baby really likes 80s music. Darkwave, new romantic, stuff like that. Dancey music. That works for me. I like it too. Viking Vet, The Who is a Mongolian rock. Nice mix of modern and tradition. Sounds good. The Grizzly, Kamala Hillary 2024, free radiation for all. Yes, Hillary Clinton would start a nuclear war if she is elected, so we must stop that at all hazards. At all costs, she must be prevented from being in the White House. So yeah, the second news story, Biden did get the coof. Who gives a damn? Third story, Trump and Pence wade into fierce Arizona primary battle. This is between Karen Taylor Robson and Kari Lake. Kari Lake was endorsed by Trump some time ago. Taylor Robson has been endorsed actually by Mike Pence. This is a proxy war in Arizona between Donald Trump and Mike Pence. They clearly don't like each other. They've decided to endorse competing candidates. That's not coincidental. Prediction here. Mike Pence wants to run for office in 2024. I don't know that he'll actually get a chance to. Trump may preempt him and run roughshod over him. I think that this is a test to see if he can get a candidate who is a slight underdog. She is behind Kari Lake by 5 to 10 points. It's not insurmountable, but it's significant. I think that Mike Pence is trying to try his hand at knocking off a potential MAGA gubernatorial candidate in one of the first 4 states that would have primaries if there is a primary at all. You see this as well with other individuals. You see this with, technically you see it with DeSantis. He's sparring with Newsom more than anyone else at the moment. With Haley running ads in some of the early states, Kristi Noem as well. I think that Noem wants a VP slot more than a presidential run. I don't think that she's ready for that prime time yet. I think she's angling in that position. It makes sense, therefore, to target the early states. So you've got Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Arizona. Mike Pence has looked at the gubernatorial stage here, and he said, well, Trump has endorsed the person who's a vague frontrunner. Not insurmountable, again, but doing better than her opponent. I'm going to endorse the opponent, and I'm going to monitor the polls and see how much extra leverage that gives the person. And if she wins, that's great for me because, of course, then my endorsement can be seen as tipping her over the edge into the victory. And then, Arizona, as far as that one particular state goes, they will at least have a primary and a caucus. And I can go there and I can campaign. Mike Pence will not be a president, to be clear. He's got effectively no chance of this. But he's trying. He's setting the stage for an also-ran position. It may be just to do a book deal. It may be to try to get some other slot within state-level politics. It's entirely possible. He's never been president, so he's not disqualified from seeking a lower office. He might try a Senate run or something. I wouldn't want him in any elected position. To be clear, I was never a fan of Mike Pence, even back when Trump first chose him as running mate. By the way, that aged like fine wine as opposed to milk. As a prediction, I was right about Mike Pence, now wasn't I? But that appears to be what he's doing. He and Trump are effectively in a proxy war right now in Arizona. And it's great to see. Kari Lake has about an 85-90% chance of prevailing. Trump will probably carry the day. Pence doesn't really care about who wins. He's just looking at the polling differential. He knows, I think, that over the next month there will be more polling, and he's looking for how much it narrows, if it does at all, who wins, by what margin they win. What are the responses among different demographics of voters? That's what he's basically conducting. By giving just an endorsement, he gets to conduct research into his own capabilities to see whether it's worth it to potentially run or to jump into politics again in some capacity. That's what I think Mike Pence is doing. So yes, you do have a proxy war in Arizona. One that Mike Pence, I do not believe, is likely to win. Doc, thoughts on Dan Carlin's Hardcore History podcast? He did an interesting deep dive into torture and execution through the ages. I don't know that I've actually seen any of that. Kentucky Guy, did you see Axios' piece on Trump 25 plan and schedule FEO? On day one, it would reassign tens of thousands of government employees ending their job protections. Well, if Trump wants to do that, you could definitely do worse than that on day one. Ralph J., former Marine infantryman here. MREs are gross. I don't know. I find them good. Maybe I should have joined the Marines. I find most of them tasty, especially the vegetarian lasagna that unfortunately has now been discontinued. I guess if I had gone into like the military, if I'd gotten that, I would have considered myself spoiled. I thought it was delicious. I don't understand. So many people complain about military food. Dude, get a MRE from Vietnam, from that era sometime, from the early 70s. Then you'll understand the meaning of woe. Although they did have really good coffee. Tried it once. Have a video of it. Smoke Daddy. What's the MSM talking about with Trump's fake electors? None of the articles I see seem to elaborate, and I don't like giving them clicks. I'll have to look into it. I haven't seen that one. Crazy Loon, as a general rule, people hate the government and hate their boss. Imagine if the government was your boss. Yeah, it is for millions of Americans. That's a part of the problem. On the same page, shuffle dancing with Latin girls. Shuffle dancing. Your thoughts? I don't really dance unless it's with my infant child. You know, you bobble her around, and sing 80s songs and shit. But I'd look for an excuse to do that anyway, so. Andy, play some Tones on Tail for your baby girl. Tones on Tail. I'll have to keep that in mind. Oh, by the way, this is funny. Phoenix, Karen Taylor Robson doesn't hesitate when I ask about a favorite pastime, spending time with her 21-year-old son at a local gun range. What types of firearms do you own? The wealthy real estate attorney and prolific Republican donor running for the GOP nomination to replace Arizona Governor Doug Ducey cracks a smile and rattles off several types of semi-automatic handguns and a long rifle pistol. Long rifle pistol. Just so that we're aware of the intelligence of this fluff piece for Pence's chosen girl. I have a Glock 19. I'm partial to Glocks. I have a 19 and 17 and a competition 17-inch, she said. I've got a Smith & Wesson 9mm. Actually, I had one. It got stolen when my house was broken into years ago, but I got another one. I have a Ruger 22 competition. When we go to the outdoor range, we like to take the long rifles, but I like the handgun ranges. So, in other words, you've got the AstroTurf Pence candidate rambling about all the guns that she owns, none of which are particularly impressive. I've got a Glock 17. It's a pretty good weapon, but Jesus, a long rifle pistol. Okay, yeah, that's enough of the anti-gunner bullshit for the day. Ninja Bearfish. Voting another guy in isn't going to solve any of our problems. All governments work together and are on the same team. They act like enemies on TV, but in reality, they are working together. 2 wings, 1 bird. Depends on the composition of the government. If you had a bunch of Rand Paul clones in the Senate, you'd probably see a change now, wouldn't you? I believe that some of the individuals within MAGA are quite genuine in wanting to reform the way things work. So I tend to support them. I am selective, however. I'm not going to support Dr. Oz for obvious reasons. Hair Juicer 3000 sent $5, but no comment. Thank you. Mr. Marbles, HOA fine us for flying the rebel flag 4 years for last 2 years. Now they're trying to get it removed with lawsuits. Well, we can't move, Biden-flation. Also in Arlington farmland, we are getting our crops squashed literally. We can't fight forever. Yeah, housing authorities should be abolished. It's interesting. It's ironic. I was going to do a video tomorrow on why we should abolish housing authorities and defang them. Branch Covidian 19. Apparently someone tried to attack New York Republican gubernatorial candidate Lee Zeldin with one of those pointed self-defense keychains. Yes, somebody alluded to that earlier. I didn't know exactly what that refers to. So apparently Lee Zeldin was attacked earlier. I'll have to look that up. D. Sadler. Hey, Sticks, do you by chance sell autographed hardcover copies of any of your books? I have a book collection and would love to have your John Hancock. I would like to do that in the future, but first I have to have hardcovers available. I tried that with the Book of Forbidden Knowledge, but it just fucked up the Amazon algorithm, so I had to take it back down. I've decided to only do that with my self-titled books, but it's going to take a lot of time, and right now I'm actually editing another 10 regular editions for softcover before I get to that. I want to get that done by the end of the year. Hair Juicer 3000, Don Carlin's hardcore history is awesome. Apparently, people seem to like it. Ainsley 187, Glocks chambered in 40 Smith & Wesson offer a good bang for your buck as they can be converted to 9mm or 357 SIG simply by swapping barrels and mags. A lot of intercompatibility with Glocks and AR systems. Fladley 1, best military food is on submarines, bubbleheads. Yeah, being on a submarine might make me a little bit claustrophobic, to tell the truth. I like wide open spaces. Alejandro Munoz, reading your book about gross rituals. Nasty as fuck. 12 out of 10. Do you mean the human hors d'oeuvre one that I edited? that was definitely something. Piss and blood and shit and all these things used in religious contexts. It was an anthropological work. It was made by the U.S. military in part, back 100 years ago. Leo C., how can I red pill my leftist brother who gets all of his political views from just 10 minutes of CNN and 5 minutes of NPR per week? Well, if he gets all of his reality in that short a time, he's probably not able to be red-pilled because he's got a small mind. So my condolences, but your leftist brother will just have to have a rude awakening at some point to red-pill him. Texas Red, 99 dead dinosaurs. Fill it up, my car goes roar. Oil does not come from dinosaurs. It comes from extremophile bacteria shitting in differentially osmotic rock systems. That is, they're in a porous area. And then seismic activity squeezes the excrement out of that area. It gets heated up, in the lower area of the crust by the heat from the mantle, and it becomes hydrocarbon chains. It becomes oil. IFID, any recommendations on modern Hawaiian shirt brands? Don't have the moolah for the vintage stuff you're an aficionado of. Clank. Well, there's always Shine, but that's made in China. I don't know whether this one's one of those or if it's older. I'm not actually sure. Liz got it for me. Next news story. It has to change. Small business owners sound off on crushing inflation. They survived the pandemic lockdowns, but the owners of gas stations, hardware stores, and restaurants aren't sure they'll survive this. Yes, indeed. Bidenomics is beginning to take another toll on small businesses. The problem is this. You already robbed a lot of people of their savings because of the lockdownerism that we saw over the last few years. Now the problem is nothing's locked down. Demand is actually in some cases higher than it was before. You've got larger population, et cetera, et cetera. You've got less competitors. Some of them went under. So if you survived, you're doing 10% better. But now people have to buy things that are much more expensive, or you have to raise your prices in order to make ends meet. And people just don't have the money to do that. We're looking at stagflation. We're looking at recession. Bidenomics does not work. Similar neoliberal policies in other countries do not work. What we need to do is do the exact opposite of these things. We need a constitutional amendment, for instance, in the US to ban lockdowns from ever happening again. We need an end to the tax and spend system, the trickle-up economics of Bidenomics, which is what it is. Trickle-up is you inflate the currency, you're taking money from the lower classes, and you're spending it on funny projects, infrastructure, whatever you happen to deem it, and you expect that to expand the economy. It's not working. I'm doing that for a year and a half. Clearly, it's not working. You can observe that for yourself. Funny part is there never was a trickle-down attempt in human history, but there definitely are trickle-up effects. The government takes the poor, like a goddamn sponge, and squeezes all of the liquid out of it. And it takes that liquid and hopes that it'll make more liquid. It's like magic. Never actually works, but they keep trying. Lost Notebooks. Hey, Sticks, what's the definition of a depression? That's on Twitch. A recession, but worse. That's basically what it boils down to. A depression of your economic output for an extended period of time that goes beyond the recession level. I think there are competing definitions. Let's see here. Flowers in her hair. Emojis representing dog shit, I believe. Intradasting. I'll paint. Trumper tantrum. The lefties. Yes, the left clearly, they have Trumper tantrums quite commonly. Bondage Spider on Twitch. If you became a furry YouTuber, a VTuber, would you be Sticks Hexen Hamster 666? Somebody is unfortunately going to make a parody of that at some point now that you've mentioned it. By the way, I think there are over 4,000 people watching live. Yes, close to 4,500, which is apparently the new normal for these live streams, unless I do them really early or have nothing to fucking talk about. Now we'll talk about David Hogg. Yes, our favorite kid. You couldn't criticize him at first. He was one of the Parkland survivors, even though he wasn't actually in Parkland at the shooting. He was biking at the time. It's very, very interesting because when he first self-appointed himself to be the ambassador of hating guns, if you criticized him too hard or in the wrong way, you could actually get banned for it. But now he's like, I don't know, 23 or some shit like that. So nobody cares anymore. He's no longer, young and beautiful, supposedly. Parkland survivor David Hogg was kicked out of a House gun control meeting. March for Our Lives founder David Hogg. The one that tried to compete with Mike Lindell and then gave it up because the investment clearly wasn't actually going to make it possible to make a competing pillow company. They wanted to make woke pillows. It turns out that doesn't work so well. When your entire ethos behind your product is, hey, we make the other person's product, but with a different political bent, most people don't give a shit about it. March for Our Lives founder David Hogg confronted Representative Andy Biggs over his rhetoric on gun ownership. So, David Hogg decides to hog the limelight. He shows up to a House meeting, so there's some decorum involved, less than with the Senate, but, it still does kind of exist in Congress in general. You show up, you start yelling and rambling and being combative, which he clearly was. You can watch the fucking video for yourself. And now he's playing the pity me card. Oh my God, they forced me out because I'm too forceful about my belief that guns should be banned. Pity me. Give me some more money for my political action committee. Pity me, give me another slot on MSNBC where I can complain about people who are neoliberal telling me to fuck off because I'm making them look like shit. David Hogg is the world's biggest goddamn grifter that I've ever seen. He's talentless. He's just grifting. And the only purpose behind what he's even saying, because he wasn't personally affected by jack fucking shit. And he threw all of his friends. You remember the Parkland crowd where he had that one chick there that I guess was kind of a tomboy or whatever. Can't remember her name. And there were a couple of other people and they would make speeches and make appearances together. Hogg has completely thrown them under the bus. Even the tomboyish chick there with the shaved head that he appeared with initially, I don't think she still goes to their events, really, or stays in the background anyway. You haven't heard from her in the last couple of years, but you sure hear from David Hogg because he's self-aggrandizing. The whole point of this is he wants to maintain enough attention so that he can get a news slot or so that he can write a book about his experience or something. He's got his, and this is really what the anti-gunners in the United States tend to be. They just want a little bit more clout. They want more money. And you see this with the so-called justice movements, Al Sharpton's people or whatever. They do the same thing. Hey, we need more justice for the ghetto. No, I live in a penthouse 100 miles away. I live in a homogenous neighborhood. I live in a gated community or something like that. But we need to do more for these people. If you just pay me more money, I'm sure we can solve the problem. David Hogg is exactly the same kind of person. He'll do well, by the way, on this particular shtick, because he can always say that people that disagree with him are extreme or something. There are people that'll believe it. On the same page, okay, looking at current affairs at a so-called right-wingit. When should I be tired? At a so-called right-winger, I think you mean? I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. Looking at current affairs at a so-called right-winger. When should I be tired? A lot of people are tired right now. It's only 8 o'clock Eastern in the U.S. Princess, ditto the question on fake electors. I'm worried about only the MSM unclear. Please help. I don't know. I'll have to look into that story more. I haven't seen that one. Do you mean the ones being queried by the J6 committee? Because they don't have any legal teeth. They can't do anything. Who cares what the J6 people want? Liz Cheney is their leader. She's going to lose her job in less than 4 weeks. She's on death's doorstep as far as her congressional career. Snuggie Jr., Morning Sticks, any thoughts on attempts to retake the culture from the woke? They are working. They overstretched with CRT and with Drag Queen Story Hour. Neerith, how much longer do you figure 4chan is going to be relevant? Almost 20 years on the internet and still going. I think that there'll be one for the ages that lasts longer than basically anything else simply because of the function that it serves. Barra7331. Mexican president tells Americans to get gas from Mexico. Yeah, you might want to hop the border in order to fill up your tank. It might be cheaper at this point. That's the sad part. Brian K.E. My conspiracy theory on Biden's COVID news. He got confronted about his cancer gaffe, questioned his staff, realized they lied to him about the state of the country, and got put into timeout when he tried firing people. Scary. It could be to cover up the cancer gaffe, but I don't think that it would be necessary to do that. I doubt that. No, I can accept that he tested positive for COVID, much like hundreds of millions of other people, some of which, were actually sick. There's nothing to be done about it, though. He's taking one of those experimental research medicines that we're not allowed to talk about, maybe. I'm not even sure at this point what the rules are on a YouTube or Twitch stream. Sepphoris, wait, Hogg's throwing a fit again? Yes, indeed. David Hogg was at the House gun control meeting, the one where they claimed that any form of brace for the weapon would turn it into a bump stock automatic weapon. Yeah, there's definitely some propaganda there. Yeah, he showed up and he started rambling. Josie, did you hear about West Taiwan's banking scandal? A head of one of the banks lifted $6 billion from personal accounts and fled the country. Run on banks happening, and their government isn't reimbursing those affected. Yeah, I talked about that the other day in the live stream, the bank runs there. They've got tanks in front of some of the banks right now. Princess, fake electors in Georgia, I believe, sent to cast alternate votes for Trump. Yeah, I've only sporadically paid attention to that story because it's dead news at this point. We're talking about a year and a half ago. The J6 committee is meaningless. Any attempt to unhonk or unfortify the last election at this point is meaningless. It's better to look forward to the future. Now we're going to talk about this story. Again, links in the description to all of these. Whitlock, Minneapolis mom screams a consequence of Black Lives Matter and Ben Crump's protection of criminals. Yes, BLM and similar groups are being called out now because quite clearly, if you look at what they say, they really don't care if black people get killed or they suffer damage to their businesses, if their communities are ripped apart or weakened by some government policy. In fact, when those happen, actually it's good for BLM because then they can just blame the correct people and they can say, but if you pay us, you who tend to be in the white suburbs, if you give us more money, it won't happen again. And these people will finally be free of the chains of slavery and stuff like that. This has been happening for more than a fucking half century. It starts with people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson taking the civil rights movement, grifting off of it and turning it into a corporate entity. And they spent the entirety of the 70s, 80s, and 90s making untold millions of dollars off of this. It happens in every race. It happens in every religion. It happens among every ethnicity. It happens among people young and old, male and female, gay and straight. It doesn't really matter. There will always be someone to say, hey, if you pay me, your lot in life will be improved. It's the same as the climate gang at this point. Hey, if you pay me, I'll plant a tree. You don't need to do it yourself. You work hard for a living. You're too tired to plant a tree at the end of the day. Give me $10 though, and I promise that I'll plant a sycamore tree right now. And most of the time it doesn't actually happen. When it does happen, it's less efficient. Anytime money changes hands, it automatically becomes less efficient a transaction because human action is required, and that requires that people be paid. It's as simple as that. Ben Crump is BLM's imperial wizard, the mush-mouthed, imbecilic southerner profiting from the peculiar institution of anti-black discrimination. Crump fashions himself as a civil rights attorney, a descendant of Thurgood Marshall and Martin Luther King. Crump is the Frankenstein monster, the low IQ creation of Johnny Cochran and Al Sharpton. Yeah, so apparently not an article in favor of BLM. Then again, these days, how can you be in favor of BLM? It's impossible. Not unless you're nuts. Sephoris, it's 6:07 a.m. in Washington. Too early for that oversized child. Yeah. Ilhitu, I'm looking to make a closed terrarium. Advice? I've never really had a terrarium. We did raise a monarch butterfly once from a chrysalis that we found. That was fun. There's a picture of me as a little 4-year-old kid with a monarch butterfly perched perfectly on my nose and me going cross-eyed looking at it. That was its first thing to do upon being released from its chrysalis in the little old fish tank, which we turned into a terrarium. We figured it would die probably otherwise, get predated upon, and it flew off out the window. It's pretty cool. There is a picture of that. I'll try to find it when I'm back in Rutland. Jesus Christ, home slice. Apparently George Soros donated 1 million super berries to Beto's campaign. Why am I not surprised? I'm surprised it's only 1 million. He must not have much faith in Beto winning if he's making such a low bet. That's nothing for him. That's like 10 minutes work. Miguel Barrera, seems the New York City and DC governments are whining about illegals coming to their cities. Yes, I'll be talking about that as well, I believe, tomorrow. If only there is a way to prevent them from coming in. At the moment, there's not. ES 1776, LGB, FJB. I'll get the reference. Over on Rumble, Metal Raider 2181. If I can drag this to the top. I have no problem with gun-grabbing morons pissing their money away to other useless morons like David Hogg. In fact, I encourage it. Please, gun grabbers, make this moron the face of your movement. Yeah, he's trying to grow a beard now, too, which is probably the funniest thing that he's ever done. I think Greta Thunberg would have a better beard than him without much effort. Zim the Despot, me after watching a documentary on the Decemberist, reject modern liberalism, embrace 19th century liberalism. That was better back then. Now we got to talk about monkeypox. Monkeypox spreading in cluster events, but vaccines can help stop it, local health officials say. Yes, monkeypox is spreading in clusters. We'll get into the reasons behind that. In the United States, The monkeypox virus has spread quickly in clusters across the United States at certain music festivals, pool parties, and bathhouses. And now public health officials in areas with a lot of infections want more vaccines made available to help control transmission, which appears to happen when people touch intimately, skin to skin. There are two different aspects of the response. Lori Tremmel Freeman, Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of County and Health City Officials, told CNN, by the way, what a long fucking acronym your office is. One is heavily concentrated, rather narrowly on events that occur that can be hotbeds for the spread, including large dance parties and pool parties. Coming off of Pride Month, for example, our health departments in certain areas of the country really had their hands full because there were large events being held where people had many anonymous partners and there was no ability to even track how or when they were exposed, Freeman said. Second, we're certainly right now in a phase where we're having to manage the existing quantity of vaccine and really focus on new cases in high-risk individuals. Oh, goodness. She added, so not doing prevention efforts just yet, but focused on case counts. These case counts are on the rise. The number of probable or confirmed monkeypox cases in the United States more than doubled within a single week, jumping from 866 to 1,814 between July 11th and 16th. The latest count from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention shows that more than 2,000 probable or confirmed monkeypox cases have been reported nationwide. You may have noticed me just having a coughing fit there. I will say very little more about this situation. Yeah, there are high-risk activities with anonymous, intimate partners. Yes, that's how monkeypox is spreading. Are we not allowed to say the obvious about what exactly is involved here with regards to the initial outbreak that was routed back to a fetish festival in Belgium, of all places? And then a few people came to the United States. They're Americans. They went to Belgium to go get fucked in the ass, and they carried monkeypox back. And now all of a sudden they're talking about asymptomatic cases too, which is bollocks. Can we please just put the writing on the wall here and be plain as day and say that this has to do with specifically the timing of the outbreak and the original cluster, honk honk, that was infected? Is that politically incorrect enough so that we're not allowed to talk about it on YouTube? I genuinely don't know, but I think that you know what I'm talking about. There's a reason it overlapped with Pride Month. There's a reason that it started at a fetish festival. There's a reason why it's spreading in clusters, and these things are not coincidental. Again, the truth, though, is evil in an age of lies. BB, $1, no comment, thank you. Mad Marlin, I've got nothing to ask or say. I'll take the money anyway. That'll buy some diapers. Lifecock, hey, it's J. Crow. There's a Guar documentary on Shudder. You can watch that and then watch Joe Bob. Yeah, so that was mentioned earlier. There's apparently a Guar documentary up on a site called Shudder with D's, not T's. The Grizzly, the only thing this race id poll gift is helping the elite. It will hurt the gay community, the black community, the minority community. When the inevitable backlash begins against it, the big guy gets his 10%. Yes, absolutely. Many such cases. Falvey Pollard, straight up dog. Ham of Buddha. What happened to the coffee with you, vids? Here's some diaper money. Congrats on the child. Clank, clank. Yeah, I have switched to energy drinks partially. I normally drink 9s because they're the tastiest shit ever, but I don't have them stocked at the local store. The farmers have robbed me of my energy drinks. However will I survive? On the same page, slavery. I thought Thomas Sowell covered that. Darun Albane, the fake electors was the alternate panel selected during the lawsuits. Oh, okay. I'll have to look into it more then. BB. Beto is losing by 12 points. By the way, any word on the tightening of the generic ballot? It seems as though the GOP, absent blue wave, sees a trough in June or July. I think that they'll be ahead in the generic come the midterms. I wouldn't worry about that. It'll probably be by 1.5, 2 points, which is significant, by the way. It's much better than the GOP has done in most recent midterms. Beto, I think, will lose by single digits at this point, but I think it'll be in the high single digits, 8 or 9 points. That's my guess. I would say 8 is the over-under that I would give. Jacko Slap Bass, cloud being made by planes. Thoughts? Yes, it's called condensation. I know that the chemtrail thing is still talked about quite often. Not a big believer in that. Although jets do spray stuff out occasionally. In some cases, this is literally to modify weather. I think they use silver. I can't remember. It's some silver-based material. They spray it into clouds, and then it makes rainstorms or some shit during droughts. PWN Tang, searching for big booty Latina in handcuffs, is turning up way different results than it used to. What's going on? Yes, an AOC reference. Butt sack ball cheeks. Thanks for the white pills. Many more if you stay tuned to this channel, by the way. Music and fiction. Welcome to 1985. Glorified VD zipping through gay community. Dr. Fascist at the head of research. All we need now is Mr. on the radio. Yeah, look for Kim Wilde to make a comeback or something. Michael Painter. Should the GOP call out the Dems on abortion affecting minorities and LGBT the most and offering an exception to minorities and lesbians? Ultra troll. No, they should just ignore the issue because it's become a non-issue. Voters clearly aren't responding to it since the generic hasn't really changed. The state level races haven't really changed. Biden's approval is falling. I think Roe v. Wade has become a non-issue, which I wouldn't have predicted it 6 months ago, but somehow the Democrats made it work. Now, the next story. Former Clinton advisor says Hillary is preparing to run again in 2024. Be afraid, be very afraid. If Joe Biden doesn't stand in the gap and make his dementia run, we may end up with Hillary Clinton actually becoming the Dem nominee again. Can you imagine how funny that would be? And he goes to the 9/11 celebration and passes out like a sack of potatoes again, maybe. I don't think she would win, but she may actually be nuts enough to try to run again. That's why I think that they want Joe Biden out. They want him to bring up age specifically of his own accord, not even other people doing it, and say, look, I'm too old, time to pass the torch. I just don't feel as peppy as I used to. It's time for someone under 70 to run. That cock blocks Trump, at least partially with some independent voters. It would have a limited impact, but it certainly fucks Hillary Clinton. It certainly screws with Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and other people that Biden clearly doesn't like. He may do it just for jollies. He may do it on his own without even being convinced to do so. A former top advisor to Bill Clinton claims that Joe Biden will be forced to step aside and be replaced by Hillary, who is preparing to run again for president in 2024. If that's the case, I'm sure that she's looking at the story about Joe Biden having COVID or his gaffe about having cancer, and she's like this. She's laughing her ass off. She's cackling so hard that she's almost choking on her own laughter. I wouldn't put it past her, by the way. Just to be clear. No, not again. The prediction was made by Dick Morris, who ran Bill Clinton's successful re-election campaign in '96 and was once touted as Clinton's most influential advisor. According to Morris, the Democratic establishment knows Biden can't run again in 2024. Agreed. 2/3, 70% chance. Due to his quickly declining mental abilities and the economic disaster he had presided over. By the way, when you have your former top advisor throwing the sitting president under the bus by saying that he's got cognitive decline and an economic disaster on his hands, doesn't this seem inexplicably Clintonian? Like, would you imagine that this wasn't said with Hillary Clinton's and or Bill Clinton's blessing? Like Dick Morris just thought it up off the top of his head. He's just spouting off to sell a book or something at like 10,000 years old. No, I think the Clintons are in on the joke as far as making sure that this particular story got out there. And this is Zero Hedge, by the way. The Clinton story is on Zero Hedge. And they're quoting Dick Morris. This is the best timeline for people who understand 90s era and 80s era political history. Everything right now is goddamn hilarious. It's not even a tragicomedy at this point. It's a slapstick. It's a farce. BB, Dems can outrun Biden's approval by 10, not 20. Yeah, I'd say Biden does still have a core of support. A lot of people will say, hey, he's the incumbent. He wants to run. He's allowed to run. And they'll pile aboard. That could become a huge problem for the Democrats. Control over order balance. Kamala or Hillary? Who would be a worse president? Kamala. I think Kamala would actually be worse. Hillary Clinton is at least mentally with it. Kamala's clearly not. Clinton, though, might go crazy and start a war. Kamala would be a little bit more demure because, of course, she wouldn't have any mandate. Basically, like, hey, do you want to have AIDS type 1 or AIDS type 2? Silver Bullet, you have video on your take on trickle-down economics. No, but I do have a take on it, which is that the term was only used as a pejorative for Reaganomics, which basically was just freeze federal spending at the current level for a couple of years. That's really Ronald Reagan's biggest accomplishment. Freezing federal spending to reduce the amount of GDP allocated to government services. He only did it for a couple of years, then abandoned it, and some people thought he was going to axe Medicare. Geek Recon Z. Biden got the coof, proving the vaccine is, I can't say that on YouTube. My apologies. People can still see the comment, though. Censored. Cure for cornhole pox is macaques a-flopping. Oh, yeah. Paul Brown, do you think there is a culture shift from what we are currently going through? Yeah, I'd say that the culture is shifting. Gen Z appears to be going further to the right than the millennials at a far earlier stage, so they might end up becoming a bunch of fucking tradcons. ES1776, shout out to the Iron Cross Band and First 211. Check them out on YouTube. Okay, there is a shout out. Iron Cross Band and First 211. Florida Mugwump. Is there a way to become president without running? So who will Kamala choose as her VP? Hillary? No, she's not suicidal, so she wouldn't choose Hillary Clinton as VP. That wouldn't work. I don't know. Buttigieg would be probably the front runner. That'd be hilarious. You've got Kamala, who's incoherent, and then you have the gay Dracula as her running mate. That'd be the funniest administration in history. I don't know. Maybe we should hope that Joe Biden gets sicker from the coof and has to resign. I'm just joking, by the way. Transylvanian 90, the fact that Democrats are trying to make Hillary happen again is a truly epic sign of their desperation. Yes, including in 2016 when they ran her in the first place. Don't you have anyone a little bit younger who hasn't already tried to run several times and failed over and over? Trump beating her again would be hilarious. I'd rather see Trump v. Biden than Trump v. Hillary again. Both of them would be funny, and I hope that Trump is in it. I'd rather see that. I'd love to see him face off against Buttigieg. Can you imagine Dracula facing off against Trump? He'd probably make garlic references just for jokes. Harold Vio, Rystad Energy estimates U.S. recoverable oil sits at 214 billion barrels. Don't be fooled by media saying it's far lesser and can't influence oil prices. Interesting. Jocko Slapbass, Western elites funding both sides in World War II. Thoughts? Yes, indeed. Prescott Bush sold oil to the Luftwaffe in World War II. Then there was the business plot that the Bush family was part of. Nobody was ever prosecuted for this. You should look up the business plot. The Wikipedia article for it has been edited over the years. You should look back through the archive of the prior instances of that particular article if you want to see why. And then look at the timing of the edits. Silver bullet, difference between Bidenomics and Trumponomics. Easy difference. Bidenomics doesn't work and Trumponomics does. Real easy. So yeah, Clinton supposedly, according to Dick Morris, may run again. So she's a glutton for punishment. And so is the United States and the Democratic Party. We've all just gone to hell. I'm convinced maybe a meteor hit Earth. We all died instantly. And we're in hell now. We're just going to suffer for the rest of eternity. You're not going to get any older. You're just going to have to deal with this horse shit for the rest of eternity. On the same page, my God, I'm nearly 50 and instead of going to Thailand, I'm going to Burma, Myanmar to see what they have to. I wouldn't go to Burma if I were you. It's kind of destabilized. That's definitely not on my bucket list as far as places to travel to. I think I'd rather go to Thailand. If you want a country that's less developed or something, go to Cambodia or something. You can see Pol Pot's statues of skulls still out there in the fields. The Spence Fencer, Sylphian has been refound. Without 1,000-year lost ancient herbs, your garden pathetic. Next chapter in the legend of Sylphian, preliminary Morpholo. Do you mean Sylphium? Yes, I believe that I didn't know Sylphium had been refound. Let me look that up. That'd be exciting if true. Did they finally identify what Sylphium was? Oh, Sylphion's a different term for it. My apologies. Yeah, I'm not seeing Yeah, no, I'm not seeing any corroboration that it's been rediscovered what specifically it was. There are some primitive drawings from 1,000 years ago. There's a general description. It might be some extinct subspecies, though. That's a problem. I have heard of Sylphium before, used in love filters and things like that. Oh, I think I accidentally closed out the Rumble link really quick here. I got to try to get it back up here. Oh, thank goodness. You just go to your history. Boomers wouldn't understand. Now I've got to refresh this shit. Yeah, we got 5,000 people watching. That's it's pretty up there, by the way. Okay, and then we have one last news story. We're going up on an hour 10, so we'll try to keep this quick. President Biden's job approval. His current spread is currently at -20. That is, yes, indeed. He has eclipsed all of the former lows of every president other than Jimmy Carter and George W. at their worst possible moments in history. He's lower than Truman. His current approval is lower than at any point in Donald Trump's administration, at any point in, I believe, Clinton, Herbert Walker, Ronald Reagan. I think he just eclipsed that as well the other day. Basically, anyway, than Ford, LBJ. Basically, all modern presidents within living memory, going back as far as fucking FDR and Truman, Biden has done a worse job now officially at this particular point. Very much earlier in his presidency, by the way, the asterisk administration, than literally anybody else. Congrats. Let's go, Brandon. Everyone fucking hates you. You'll notice, by the way, a couple of these polls on here aren't reliable, including the only one not showing him double digits down, which is the IBD poll, which of course polls only adults. The other two being Reuters, ignore Reuters, that's similar to the spread, and CNBC, which shows him basically neck and neck with the spread. Ignore those. The spread itself doesn't really change. It gets slightly worse, but not really. Once you fix for that, yes, indeed, he is currently at his lowest ever approval. Technically, before the Emerson poll came in, slightly lower, so it's ticked up by like 0.2, but nobody cares. His disapproval roughly tied with where it has been. He has found a new floor and ceiling. The ceiling is becoming evident. And this is something that definitely people need to keep in mind. Again, links in the description. Go to the current RCP link. Let's learn together. Look at the graph down below. I'll give you a second to load it up. You've got the RCP average. You got Emerson, Rasmussen, Reuters, YouGov, Quinnipiac, Politico, NPR, PBS, Fox, CNBC, IBD, New York Times, Siena, and Insider Advantage. You got 12 polls. You got plenty of data points. Look at what you're seeing form and look at the prior linear formation that you saw. You can see it graphically. You don't need the actual numbers. You just need the graph. You can get the numbers from that. If you look, Joe Biden's disapproval since roughly the middle of June for about a month has been roughly linear. That is, there's only a couple of points deviation up and down, and it's forming another line. He has hit a new ceiling in disapproval. So far, he has not yet hit, to my knowledge, looking at this, it does not appear that he is at a new floor for approval. That's really bad if you're Joe Biden. The approval number does matter, actually. Prior, from roughly the middle of January to roughly the end of May, he had been stable at a prior floor and ceiling. We're talking about many, many months, and that was the soft support. And what I posited many months ago was that he would hold there long term, and he did for many months after I predicted this, because that represented you have still the support of Dem partisans and independents that lean towards the left. What this indicates to me is that the left-leaning independents and some leftoids have abandoned him. Now, this doesn't mean you disapprove of Biden, therefore you register Republican. It doesn't necessarily mean as much in the midterms, but goddamn, it has to be dragging them down like a goddamn weight. This is like a big-ass ball and chain around the neck of the Democratic Party come the midterms. So yes, Joe Biden's approval now effectively at its lowest point, his disapproval effectively at its largest. I see a new floor forming. Let me give a prediction. I think that the new ceiling for disapproval is at roughly 56.5. That's the new ceiling. That's the upper number. The new lower number likely to be about 37% approval. That's goddamn dire. That's fucking terrible. That's like Bush post-Katrina. That's like Trump in his darkest hours never got to that low level of approval. After January 6th or some of the other problems that happened, he never even got close to that. Certainly not in disapproval, partially because he had a larger core fan base. It was more hardened than Joe Biden has. There is no other president in living history for the average American living, going back as far as fucking Harry Truman. That's a long-ass time ago. We're talking about the dawn of the atomic era. You don't even have nuclear weapons yet, like multi-stage devices. And that's the last time that a president has had such low approval, certainly within a term. Most often, the second term is worse than the first, too, by the way. So, yeah, imagine if Biden actually sought re-election and got it. Imagine how low he'd be then. He'd probably get removed from office. Purple Alien, good morning, Sticks. Does Biden have COVID, or are they trying to hide him because of his mental decline? I think he does have, well, he tested positive. That Hong Kong totally means he has COVID. Yes, I think that he does, but they also want him to be able to hide from the public. It's convenient. Transylvanian 90, YouTube slapped a COVID link to Health Canada on your video, I guess because of the title. This is some creepy stuff. That's automatic and nobody cares. Mr. Bird, have you read the Gulag Archipelago? Thoughts? I have not, but I have heard of it. On the same page. Sorry, mate, I'm drink. I could tell. Sounds pretty good. Get some margaritas up in you, boy. You might as well. The world might not be around much longer with how Biden's running things into the ground. The Spence Fencer, Google, the next chapter in the Legend of Sylphian. Next chapter in the Legend of Sylphian. Just a second, I'll... The Legend of Sylphian. Okay, I'll check that out later. Thank you. BB, Biden, -20 means GOP wins Senate and House. Not necessarily. Pay attention to the generic congressional. Again, you may hate Biden, but you may like the Democratic candidate for the Senate seat. There's a decoupling of this. They are linked, but they're not strongly linked. It's just not helpful for the Democrats. The Republicans cannot take the Senate for granted. Doc, if you're up and not busy grinding on those edits tonight, you should check out the AAA on Sinatra Screams tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. I will be grinding out some other stuff tonight. I will not be able to pay attention to live streams much. Wolf on the Plains, do you expect shenanigans for the midterms? Thoughts on Tim Pool's prediction for Civil War? Check out Blue Stolly. Great music. I do not believe there will be a Civil War. We're less than 100 years into the actual American empire, in my opinion. We got another century and a half to go, I think, before we've got true problems. As far as shenanigans, no. I think it's much harder in the midterms than it was in the honkening prior. By the way, please no more super chats. I do have to do other things at some point, and I still have to read these. We've gotten through the news stories. A Bowden, 556. Thoughts and prayers for Biden. Please hang on long enough to keep Kamala Harris out of the White House. That is the general consensus for most people who are not Democrats right now. Musically assured destruction. Has anyone else noticed more legacy news stories about eating bugs? I see people in their comments claiming they've eaten bugs and don't mind it. Yeah, lots of such stories, actually. As far as I go, I'll gladly eat bugs, but I'm not going to do it because Soros tries to commercialize it to me. I'll do it on my own. Hey, this bug looks tasty, I say as I walk through the woods. I'm slightly hungry, and there are more of them under this log. Well, I guess I've got a free snack. Protein I did not have to pay for. Rider of the Metal Horse over on Rumble. We need to bring production and jobs back to the U.S. How should we do it? Make a law making it illegal to send American jobs overseas? Give tax incentives? How should we do it? Lower taxes, lower regulations, incentives for corporations, at least the local and regional chains, and end all of the so-called free trade deals that have nothing to do with free trade. It's as simple as that. If you deregulate, if you bring the cost down, we can make our shit ourselves. We don't need to bring it in from overseas. Right now, the chicken that you eat tonight probably was processed in China, even though it was raised on a farm in Kentucky. It makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. So anyway, I think that I'm going to go off now. We hit, what the fuck was it? Yeah, God, almost 5,200 people live cross-platform. That's a big one. For the midterms, again, by the way, there is a shakeup in the midterm arrangement. My co-host is Sleazy P. Martini. We will be working on getting guests aboard for the midterm. So it'll be me, Sleazy P. Martini, we're hosting. Off to the side, because I'm using StreamYard, there will be like infographics and maps and stuff. That'll be big. That's a huge improvement over the last midterm live stream when 26,000 people showed up and the chat was definitely not in slow mode. I'm thinking about leaving it not in slow mode for this one too, but that means that we won't get to all the super chats. We'll probably have to have a pay limit or something to get to them all, even if we're both talking at the same fucking time for the super chats. The other thing is I'm going to try to get guests aboard. Several of the guests that people have mentioned are confirmed for wanting to get aboard, several of them. I've got several other people I want to contact. We will be doing test streams to make sure we actually can. I cannot promise we'll have guests at all because I don't know how that works with StreamYard having more than 2 people. We can fiddle around with other technology or something. I'm going to do everything within my power to make that work. If it works out, though, you're about to see some spectacular trifectas of conversation that people have definitely asked for some time. It's going to be one hell of a goddamn show. It will be so much better than any other live stream that I've done, certainly. It's going to be one for the ages. You will want to see it. Bookmark your calendar for the midterms. Make sure to mark down that you're taking that afternoon off because you're going to be watching Sticks and Sleazy. You're going to want to see it. Lucas Zapan, Sticks absolutely going off. Pew, pew, pew. Mindy, do you smoke weed? No, I haven't smoked weed for more than 10 years, actually, because I can't. If I could smoke weed, I'd probably smoke it every day, but unfortunately, I can't enjoy it. It just makes me paranoid and weird. I had an overdose years ago, blew out some receptors in my brain. Weed is no longer fun for me. John Hendy, you should invite Nuance Bro, an actual justice warrior, for the midterm stream. I don't know who those are. I'd have to look into them. But we have two people aboard that are interested that I've wanted. I'm not going to say who because, of course, everything still has to be hashed together. I've got 2 other people that I definitely want to ask, and the thought is to have a couple more. And I got to sort of look at who's available because some people do their own streams or appear on other people's streams. We're going to have a million different creators will be streaming in the midterms. We all sort of have to coordinate when people are coming onto our streams anyway. On the same page, I'm drunk. I meant to spell from a central desert in Australia. Let's go, Brandon. You are drunk on Foster's, I predict. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to go offline here. Apparently, people are mistaking what I said. I did not overdose on weed because you can't. I overdosed on spice. I talked about this back in like 2011 and blew out some of my cannabinoid receptors and possibly opioid receptors as well. I don't even know if I can enjoy painkillers at this point. Imagine I have to get surgery and I can't even get high afterwards. Jesus. Have to snort the ibuprofen. Anyway, yes, I'm going to go off now. Very, very fun time. Almost an hour 20. Jesus Christ. And over 5,000 people at peak listening here. That is, I believe, a new record for a totally breaking news stream. I think that things are working pretty well. I think I'll keep doing these every day until I drop dead and lie stinking in the grave. That's about all. Peace out.